It's back to reality for the Florida Panthers. Although there are 25 games left, it honestly feels like a 5-game sprint to the deadline.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, February 25th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. And joining me for another edition of Winans Wednesday is Jacob Winans. You could follow him on X at JakeW_8. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. Today, we are just going to discuss the fact that the Panthers, although they have a big hill to climb to try to make the Stanley Cup playoffs, although it feels like a 25-game sprint, it really honestly, because of the decisions that the front office needs to make, it honestly feels like a 5-game sprint because there are still lots of questions on whether guys are going to play who are injured and coming back, or whether there are guys who are going to be possibly shipped off based on what national personalities are saying here. So we will discuss that and more on today's show. But Jacob, I want to first start off this show just by saying, how difficult is it for you to go back to regular season mode after just the roller coaster of emotions and just the emotional high that we experienced this past Sunday as we saw Team USA win their first gold medal in 46 years?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how quickly things change and you go back to sort of the regularly scheduled program, and it's even more crazy how some of the guys who were just teammates for this run are about to be facing off against each other with playoff implications on the line. That's kind of the nature of the way this goes with it being an in-season tournament. But yeah, with that said, it'll be good to get back to rooting for some of the Panthers guys that were over in playing against the U.S. in Italy, and specifically the Canadian group. We were definitely rooting for Team USA in that game, but there were 3 Panthers on that Canada team. Same thing goes for Finland and Sweden. It'll be cool to get some of our guys back into friendly colors. So that's always a good part of it. But also just the position the Panthers are in, rooting for Team USA over the past few weeks, it felt very familiar. It felt like rooting for the Panthers over the past 2 years. But the position they're in right now is not an advantageous one. It's definitely not what we're used to over the past couple of seasons. So we'll see how this thing goes the rest of the way. But right back into a mad dash for the playoffs and hoping they can gain some ground. But yeah, it doesn't seem like the odds are really on their side. So we'll just see what plays out over these last 20 some games.
Yeah, and Paul Maurice did say that it's not 25 games left, it's 25-1 games left. So it also gives you like a little bit of a mindset of just you got to take it one game at a time. And also, speaking of the Olympics, NBC did announce what their ratings were for the final for the gold medal game, 20.7 million, and it peaked at 26 million during overtime. And CBC for Canada got their numbers right at 8.7 million there. So pretty awesome to see for that both nations were just so locked in here for this event, which we saw 15 million for the Four Nations final on a Thursday, and thinking that this at an 8-10 puck drop, the whole nation was just ready to watch this. But a few tidbits from Bill Zito's press conference, which he met with the media for 40 minutes. So a few things that he spoke about was helping Macklin Celebrini of Canada get home, and then Mike Greer thanking him. The Kachucks having an open door policy during their time in the Olympic Village, which also creates that chemistry there. And also going out of his way to just say great things about Teddy Richards towards the end, based on everything that he's done with the Florida Panthers. And then even though there was a smaller area for Team USA, about how Teddy Richards never complained. And also, there might be some involvement and an announcement coming soon from the Florida Panthers on what they're doing to grow the women's game in South Florida. So that's also great there. He spoke about how it hasn't really hit him about the accomplishments based on the cup and then the gold medal, something that he'd have to really appreciate down the road. But Bill ZIto did ask himself the question as soon as USA won, saying, thinking about who they're going to get back. And honestly, it's such a quick turnaround with the travel and everything. Yeah, you wish the schedule was a week earlier, started a week earlier, and then ended a week later, so we could see a little bit more of the time off. But again, the Panthers just got to go back to that mode of just having that sense of urgency, and hopefully for at least the management, for Bill ZIto, Matthew Tkachuk as well, and also that sour taste in the mouth from everyone else who didn't win, and because of the fact that the Panthers had the most medalists as well. We've spoken about the 7 medals, but that's the most out of everyone. The fact that that is a factor here for the Panthers, I hope that is really something that really truly helps them drive as far as them trying to at least grab some wins to start this post Olympic break.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. We've talked about it a handful of times recently, just with the situation regarding that first round draft pick and what the Panthers should do. Um, I think to an extent we can sort of eliminate the idea of them tanking. It's not a team that's going to tank.
No,
They don't operate that way. So they may win some games. They may lose the majority of the games. Who knows? Given the health situation with this team. But if they do miss the playoffs, it's not going to be for lack of trying.
Yeah.
And the guys on this roster, I mean, the Olympics are another place where they proved it. This is a team that they win. It's just a group of winners. The most medalists, that says something. The guys who went to the Olympics, they came back with hardware. It's been nothing but a culture of success and a culture of winning and a culture of no excuses in Florida. So that's what I expect to see the rest of the way. And I do think the Olympics are going to be something of a sort of a springboard for some of the guys who got to go over there and play, and definitely for the medalists. Tkachuk is the only one who won gold. The guys on Team Canada, they're coming back with a sort of a bittersweet taste in their mouth, having lost that game. They're going to be coming back motivated. Finland, they win the bronze, but definitely a team that felt that they could have done better over there, especially if they had Barkov on that team. That's a team that definitely could have competed for gold if the circumstances had lined up differently. But that was valuable experience for the guys who went to that. Anton Lundell adds to his collection of impressive accolades at such a young age right now. And there's a lot to be excited about as far as their Olympic performance and how that could sort of springboard the rest of this season, but even into the offseason and next season. I think overall it's a positive experience for everyone who got to participate.
And I think one person who's really going to benefit, although he didn't necessarily stick out for his team, and obviously with the age and going up against the all-stars from different countries, Sandis Vilmanis getting this opportunity at 21 years old, started in the AHL this year, got the call up, has really fit in well with the Panthers as being a nice little checking line there, and also providing a little bit of that offensive touch as well. That Olympic experience, I do think that it's gonna work well for him carrying through the rest of the season. I still don't know if he's gonna be in the lineup the rest of the year, because based on the fact that he's waivers exempt and there's guys who could be coming back there. But I do think that this leaves a really good feeling in for the Panthers, knowing that he can perform with the best of the best.
Yeah, well, one of the positives in this season, and there's been a lot of negatives given the injury situation, the tons of different lineups that have had to play. One of the big positives is Sandis Vilmanis and his development. He has sort of impressed a couple times in training camps leading up to this season, and you're just kind of wondering, like, is this a lineup that he's ever going to really get a fair chance to crack, just given how deep they are at forward? you just sort of wonder if this is going to be a situation sort of like Justin Sordiff, where they just decide, like, there's no room. At some point, you got to pull the plug and kick that into a future asset. And we were probably a couple, maybe 2 years away from really having that conversation with Vilmanis as far as his development goes. But man, he has stepped in and he got an opportunity given some of the injuries, and he has been a complete fit in that lineup. And it's not just the production, it's not the points, which weren't really coming at first, but just recently, right before the break he started to see some pucks go in and rack up a few assists here and there. I almost felt bad for him that the break came when it did, because he was playing so well, and not a break for him necessarily, but just a different role going over to the Olympics, and sort of not necessarily killing the momentum, but the slowing down the momentum, I guess, the way he was playing.
Has to do a lot. Let's be real.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think one of the bright spots of this season has been his development. I think the Panthers really found a piece there that they can trust, a guy that that they believe in, that they can develop. Not a high draft pick. It's another guy, another gem found in the draft, and I think more than anything, it's a culture fit. He fits the style. It wouldn't matter if he was putting up goals or assists. It's the way he plays the game. It's very, very Florida Panthers. It's been complete buy-in in his game. He fits the system. He can play with any on any line. He can play any style that the Panthers like to play. He's a straight line player. Also, you're not a Florida Panther if you're not ending up in controversy for a borderline illegal check, and his was well across the borderline. That was nasty, and he'll learn from it. But he's a Florida Panther, and I think he's gonna have his say in making this roster going forward.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. In training camp, I can't wait to see what he does in training camp next year, and also what he could be doing the rest of this season. But again, we got to discuss more about the deadline coming up, as far as the Panthers needing these 5 games as far as to go their way to at least be in a better position there, and that might change as far as which direction Bill ZIto goes. So we're going to discuss some of the injured players and maybe possibly a trade as far as clearing a whole bunch of cap. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flight tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which teams can make the deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds the extra layers of excitement for every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started and use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And if you haven't already, make sure you check out our Everydayer Club. The Everydayer Club has an ad-free audio edition of the show, and it's an access to our group chat on Discord and more. Use the code DEADLINE ahead of the trade deadline for 1 month free of the Everydayer Club. Join now or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. So back on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast here with Jacob Winans, continuing the discussion about possible moves that Bill ZIto could make at the deadline. And honestly, the Panthers would possibly need to be 4 points out of the final wild card spot and really put themselves in position to buy. But Jacob, they would need to depend on other teams to lose, first of all. And I don't really put so much stock into it if it's one national pundit talking about it, but if it's multiple, then I think it's time to put it towards a conversation of it. So a few days ago, Jeff Merrick of The Sheet discussed wondering about what the Panthers could possibly do with goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky in the last year of his deal. A 16-team no trade. Performance hasn't been well. And then there's that discussion: should the Panthers trade him to chase a cup somewhere else? And then I said, fake news. I don't buy that at all. But then today, Kevin Weeks, he didn't report anything. He didn't report anything on trade discussions, but he put that same thought as Jeff Merrick from a few days ago. And it's really hard for me to think about the possibility of trading him because of the fact that won 2 cups and also the fact that he has a young family as well. And he doesn't want to negotiate during the season, which he's made that clear. And I think because he's just so focused on his craft, I say it's more likely that he doesn't get dealt. But Bill ZIto used the quote today during his media availability: we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable based on where they go towards the deadline. So how are you seeing this situation based on the possibility that this could happen?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think at the deadline, the Panthers are likely to end up being in a position of being sellers. Um, that's just the reality of the way this season has gone. They could prove me wrong. They could surprise everybody.
Uh-huh.
They've done that before. But as it stands right now, I think they're more likely than not to be sellers. And I think it would be irresponsible to not entertain selling at the deadline in the position the Panthers are in. I think they have a pretty thin cupboard of prospects. They've got a very thin cupboard of draft picks. That's the cost of doing business when you win back-to-back cups and you go to 3 of them. You're spending futures, giving up future assets to compete and play win now hockey, and that's the position the Panthers have put themselves in. And we'll take that all day, every day, given the what that's resulted in. But in a season where you have some guys on the roster who you likely can't bring back next year, cap wise, where it would even really make sense to keep them, it's best to probably move on from some of those players, or at least give them a chance to go compete this season elsewhere, and get some sort of futures in return for those players. With that said, the guys that I kind of had in mind going into this season that if things went horribly wrong for the Panthers and they end up in a seller's position, it's guys like Evan Rodriguez, Jesper Boquist, Jeff Petrie. It's those type of players that I would definitely would have thought, these are the guys that might get dealt. Even an AJ Greer would be a guy that I wouldn't be shocked to see moved. Did not expect it to be Sergei Bobrovsky coming up in those conversations. Still a little surprised that that's even on the table. But with that said, it's not a terrible idea, and it's not like it would be unheard of for him to be traded to go chase a cup this year, and then he hits unrestricted free agency at the end of the season, and you could bring him right back.
Yeah.
Which I think if he were traded, I think that would be the likely scenario, in my opinion. The Panthers will be in a tremendous position to be the best team in the Eastern Conference next year when healthy. Bobrovsky has won 2 cups here. He's a guy who, if you give him a reliable backup, he's proven he can go on a run. And if you don't put the entire weight of the season on his shoulders, he's more than capable of winning those big games. So I don't think as an unrestricted free agent, you're going to find a more attractive free agent option for Bob than to come right back home. It's interesting because the family consideration there that's a real thing. It's not just as simple as making a trade on NHL 26 and you move a guy and get him right back in the summer. There's real considerations to be made there, but the fact that he could have a chance to go compete for another cup when his career he has a very limited amount of years left playing top level hockey, I think that would be enticing to anybody. So wouldn't be shocked. Panthers have the ability to retain some salary there if they want to. There's definitely teams that would come knocking and would pay a nice price, even given his down year statistically. The playoff resume is legit, and there are teams that would be willing to take the chance at shoring up their goaltending heading into the playoffs. So it's something you have to at least entertain if you're Bill ZIto.
Yeah, something around maybe like a third or fourth that you would probably get for him, somewhere around there, and then 50% retained. And listen, if Minnesota is really sure about trading Jesper Wallstedt, maybe I would love to put something about 50% retained, and then you gain 2.2 from what Wallstedt is making. But obviously Minnesota would want a little bit more of that. So do you include a prospect like Mackie Semiskevich, who's struggled this season, in part of that trade, or do you wait to the offseason for that kind of move there? So with Mackie, and then, but at the same time, I do think that if Bobrovsky doesn't want to be traded, although he has a 16-team no trade, I think for the human side of things, Bill Zito should honor that. But at the same time, we don't know what the cap room will be for the Panthers here, because I do believe that Marchand, I don't know how much he has left to play this season, and there's that. I'm not the only podcaster who's questioned whether he's going to be able to finish the season based on missing 7 games, coming back, playing a game against Boston, and then missing the second end, and then playing very limited minutes in the Olympics. So possibly delaying a surgery for an upper body injury as well. And also, one thing with Barkov, Bill Zito has shut the door on season-ending LTIRing, which something that we called a long time ago. So we can't be surprised. He's in month 5 of 7, but if the 7th month is completed, that's the end of April. That's the end. That's after the regular season. There's no guarantee. So you still want to put that possibility there, but at the same time, you don't want to close the door. But also, congratulations to Alexander Barkov, 7-figure donation to Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital, and also the hospital naming a area after Barkov, the Barkov Sports Medicine area. But I also do believe that the Panthers could possibly have some cap room if Marchand is shut down, even though Paul Maurice did say that he expects him to be in the lineup on Thursday against Toronto. But I'm going to believe it till I see it, because I did not see Marchand as right during the Olympics.
Definitely not. It was the limited minutes, the fact that he was healthy scratch for a game when definitely wasn't a must-win game or anything, but the fact that he was the guy who gets the health bomb in that one, that's not based on talent or production. It was clearly a rest-based decision. He went into the Olympics playing limited minutes and not looking very effective in the minutes he did play. It's a tough situation for Marchand right now, and this was definitely the concern when you look at the contract he signed.
Mm-hmm.
How long is he going to hold up? He's had a history of injuries late in his career with Boston. Not a guy at his age, and just the way he plays, you're not going to expect him to play a full 82 probably at any point the rest of his career. I don't think. I just find that very unlikely. But when the Panthers are healthy, you can sort of limit the minutes. He doesn't have to play as taxing of a role. He's not on the ice in all those situations where he's really, really racking up the mileage. So it's an unfortunate year as far as the workload he's had to shoulder, which is atypical of what you would expect when he signed that deal. So I don't necessarily worry too much about the future, because when the Panthers are healthy, you can go back to playing him in a little bit more of a role where he can pace himself physically across the full season. With that said, I'd be shocked if he plays a game after the deadline. I think really it's a matter of he's going to come back, he's going to play, he's going to give what he has until the deadline, see where the Panthers land as far as what the rest of the outlook of the season looks like, and then they just have to make a realistic decision on is this a season that's worth putting the health on the line the rest of the way. Maybe getting a surgery in the off season that could be had right now, and then you're talking about possible missing games to start next season. Now you have your injury issues from this year compounding and carrying over into next season. These are things that have to be considered, and I think the Panthers need to. I don't know that they will, because this is a team that really just has a never say die attitude, and Marchand's not a guy who's going to want to shut it down either. But with that said, I think depending on where the Panthers land in the standings by deadline day, that's your litmus test. If you're not in a position where you can really truly tell yourself, like, we can make a run here, it's time to make the smart decision for the player, for the person, and for the future of this team going into next season.
And it has nothing to do with the top 10 protected pick, neither. In my opinion,
not at all.
It's just about whether you get off to that good start next year. And also, I think about, what if Tkachuk's injury last year and the Panthers were in the same position that they were now last year? You look at the surgery that Kachuk could have had in February, 6 months after the fact. That's when he got it. So January return, training camp. This is a training camp return for Brad Marchand possibly instead of later on. Assuming that it's a 6-month recovery. I'm not going to play doctor on a podcast, but I think about it like that as well.
Definitely, and the Panthers are coming off of 2 straight seasons where they have started the season well under full strength. It at a certain point, and I think we're at this point right now in this season is when you start off every year shorthanded and limited and bodies out of the lineup, it's really, really hard to be competitive, especially in this Atlantic Division. You get off to a slow start, you probably aren't coming back from it. And I think the Panthers at some point, if it doesn't look like it's a season and a roster health wise that can win a cup, like really, really win a cup. And I know it's hard for us to say that because we saw the Panthers squeak into the playoffs by 1 point and carry an 8 seed with a bottom 6 that probably had no business being there all the way to the Stanley Cup final. We've seen that happen, but that's not the norm. And if you really, really don't have a team health-wise that can compete, at some point you have to break the cycle of going into every season shorthanded with injuries and guys recovering from surgery, getting no training camp, starting the season with a handful of games trying to shake the rust off. I mean, it's tough to stay competitive when that's your situation. And we got to look back at Ekblad and Montour starting the season on IR and the Panthers having to piece together a defense, and then Kachuk missing so much time and Nosek and Barkov's injury. I mean, these are the Panthers haven't started a season healthy and God knows how long. If you have the opportunity to go into next year's training camp healthy, and it doesn't really change the outlook of your season this year, you have to take that.
And also the fact that you would have to spend over the cap, not accrue LTIR space, and then delay changes as well.
Exactly.
Which if you can accrue that space during the season, advantage you come next trade deadline. But let's transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss some of the injuries of some of the guys who are coming back, because the Panthers have been practicing, the non-Olympians there. And maybe it'll help them at least in their spirits. Maybe not wins wise, but in their spirits. Let's discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. And workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have still to fill sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, there's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, and locations. So you're not just hoping the right candidates stumbled across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In minutes that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. Less stress, time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. The listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, February 25th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And again, it's a sprint to the deadline with these 5 games, but there are guys who are on the sheet again. Barkov and Jones have been mostly practicing before the main group on individual skates there. Seth Jones in a non-contact and also could practice as soon as next week with the main group. Daniil Tarasov and Tobias Bjornfoot are fine. Scary injuries that they went through there with Tarasov in the last game and Bobrovsky having to come in, and then Bjornfoot missing that last game and going on IR. But some of the guys who have been out for a while, Tomas Nosek, Dmitry Kulikov, Jonah Gadjevich, those are guys who could be possibly back on the first road trip, which again, it's great for at least the group, and not always about wins and losses, to know that the fact that these guys who are coming back, who have been through the grind of these last for part of these last 3 years, no Nosek the last year, Gadjevich the last Gadjevich and Kulikov these last 2 years. It's great for that. And honestly, I was talking about this with Kirby Lupo of Cats and Rats. The Kulikov one is probably the most underrated loss of probably all the injuries, based on the fact that there has been that revolving door on the third pair, plus an older Jeff Petrie there. If the situation where Seth Jones happened, it'd be Dmitry Kulikov going to that second pair. But the fact that they're one step closer, man, is this good for the overall vibe of the room.
Yeah, it's huge. It's definitely huge, especially seeing Barkov and Seth Jones getting some ice time, and just the presence of having the captain back, just at the rink, skating with the guys, going through practices. That is a big morale boost, any way you slice it. Johnny Gadjevich, Dmitry Kulikov, those are some of the championship level role players that every good team needs to have, and I think that's definitely not to the level of missing Barkov, but something that's really been missing in some of these close games, some of the late game losses where the Panthers have given up leads, is just that the stabilizing veteran presences on your third pair, for example, on your penalty kill, on your fourth line, when you just need to settle things down shift. And it's really hard to get that sometimes from the young guys or the minor league guys who are filling in due to injuries. It's just positions they're not used to being in. So getting some of those guys back on the ice and back in games is huge. And then getting Barkov back at the rink in general and back skating is huge. And it's just another testament to his work ethic and the way he takes care of his body and recovers, because he's ahead of schedule right now based on what we're seeing at practice. I'm shocked he's moving around as well as he is.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm shocked for if that was a normal person, but given what we've seen of Sasha Barkov over the years, I guess nothing should really surprise us anymore. He's superhuman.
Yeah, and just the fact that you're gonna get a whole for Barkov, which once again I don't think that he plays a single game. The fact that he's gonna have all this time to at least get the knee right and at least do these individual drills for himself, and that is gonna at least push his offseason regimen even stronger for him, I believe. And I know that it's usually the second year after a major knee injury that a guy is back to their normal self, but the fact that defense travels uh, as you age, as we've seen in even Patrice Bergeron's last year, Ante Kopitar is still going well in his last season in the NHL. I think that this is also great for Alexander Barkov, even if he doesn't step into the ice. But the fact that there's hopefully for the Panthers coming soon, the fact that they're power play is getting a boost with Seth Jones. Penalty killers with Nosek and Kulikov. So the special teams aspect for the Panthers is also going to be in a better place. So that helps when it comes to the fact that you could play the Florida Panthers style as far as suppressing shots, but when you don't have the personnel that is with which Dmitry Kulikov, we don't see the pinches that results in the odd man rushes or the miscalculation of it. That is also going to help ease the load off the goaltending tandem of Bobrovsky and Tarasov as well.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. The special teams getting a boost here is going to at least give the Panthers a chance to win some games and stay in the games that they probably shouldn't be in. It's been a sore spot at times this year. Just not even necessarily the percentages, even though the power play, the percentage is down. The percentages haven't even been the issue as much as it is the timing of some of these goals that they give up. On the power play, times when they really, really need the power play to come through and give them a goal to stay in a game or tie a game. Too often this year, just with the guys missing, it's fallen flat. And then the penalty kill, some really, really untimely, unfortunate goals that have just burned the Panthers and sort of killed their chances to stay in some of these games that have come on the penalty kill for them. And getting some of those regulars back is huge. And also like you said on the Barkov point, I don't necessarily think he plays a game this year. I think the only way you see him on the ice for an actual game is if they miraculously find themselves really, really in a playoff chase. And then you're talking about having the best trade deadline addition in the entire NHL by bringing back a healthy Barkov. But even if he misses the rest of the season, the fact that he's going to get a super long off season of recovery, rest, strength building, just getting the confidence back in the leg, which is so often we hear about these major injuries like torn ACLs or an Achilles or something like that. The physical aspect is only half of it. The other half is the mental, just trust in that body part that you're kind of rebuilding and haven't had full range of motion or full strength in for a long period of time. He'll get a full summer to really work on that. And the studies sort of show it takes till your second year back from an injury to really regain your old form. I think Barkov has a chance to sort of defy that logic, not just because his work ethic is through the roof, but also the things that he's best at don't necessarily need the healthiest knee. I mean, his hockey mind is second to none. His positioning is better than anyone else. His face-offs, his knee is not winning him face-offs. His hands are still ridiculous. He has all of the traits and abilities to come back at 100% right away when he does come back. But I think giving him the most amount of time possible to really build himself back up into best player in the world type of form, it's something that you can't take for granted.
Hey, who knows? We could maybe see something like Adrian Peterson kind of performance after his ACL surgery. That's crazy to think that was 14 years ago for Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
Crazy season. Wow. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Jacob, thank you so much for always joining me here on another edition of Winans Wednesday. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at JakeW_8.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
Can't wait. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows in the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.